So I've always liked your creativity, but I'm still wondering, how did you come about with the idea to record a podcast?
The idea to record a podcast about the project was to have a nice afternoon together, sharing memories of what is for me a very inspiring time. So the research project To Capture is about relations between civil society and, in this case, regulatory officials at the EU level. But it's mainly about making connections. And that is what we did with the team as well. And recording a podcast about this and how we all experienced it was something I thought would be a nice closure to the project. So looking back, taking something with us for our future careers. And I hope that this afternoon full of conversations, looking back, sharing memories, helps to foster that collaborative spirit for each of us in our individual careers.
This feels so formal.
Yes. So,
do we start?
I guess we can start.
Okay. My name is Erin Sullivan. I'm a PhD student at Leiden University in the Institute of Public Administration. I joined this team as a junior researcher almost 4.5 years ago.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah. It was all thanks to you, Bert, and Celeste for inviting me onto this team after I did an internship. And I was looking to re-enter the academic world and join your team as a researcher and start to understand what it is to be a researcher.
But why did you want to become involved in this project?
Yeah, good question. I think I wanted to become involved. I wanted to get back into the research world. Bert, you were my supervisor during the master's program, and that really inspired me. I had such a good experience doing research with you. I just wanted to I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn more how to do research and different types of research. And then to be involved in a team I thought was even more exciting. It would bring new perspectives and new ways of doing research. And yeah, it was sort of this unknown. The unknown is what really excited me to enter the team.
And are you still excited today?
Of course, yeah. Of course I'm excited today. If anything, this team has made me more excited to do research. We've been on so many different types of... we've been through so many phases and stages of the project, and to see it all come together is really exciting. And I think what made it more exciting was, for me, being a junior researcher, you guys gave me those extra steps to understand how it was to get to my own project. So this is opening new doors to new research adventures.
Okay, research adventures. I like that.
Yeah.
Sounds much better than research projects and much more exciting.
Yeah, maybe we should use that from now on.
Yes, let's continue about this research adventure, which we should call it from now on. And I was curious, what was for you the most memorable moment in this adventure? If you have to pick one, it can be anything, basically.
Yeah, I guess there's many adventures. COVID was a big adventure, but maybe I don't want to go down that path. I think one adventure that was really exciting for me, and also one of the main reasons I came on as a junior researcher, was indeed doing a lot of the data collection, especially with Adrià and Moritz, and being able, even in the first weeks of being a junior researcher, being able to go to Brussels and interview these senior EU Commission officials and getting to know their world and being able to interview them and also interviewing the stakeholders. It really opens your world to all everything that we're researching and just getting the hands-on, on-the-ground outlooks of the project.
And can you say a bit more about how it opened your world? Yeah.
I think in a number of ways. on the one hand, you get the personalities of the commission officials. You read about them in the newspapers. You hear about them on the radio. You even hear about them in podcasts. And somehow you sit down with them and you realize, oh, they're just people. And they're working on these really complicated issues. And you see what they're going through and kind of the stresses they feel. But I think that face-to-face interaction makes it a whole different experience. You see that, oh yeah, they are humans just dealing with really complicated issues, and there's so much going on. And, as researchers, we try to break that apart, but they're really carrying all those things that we're asking about them in their own backpacks. And so to see that kind of all sort of expand in a conversation, I think is super insightful and fruitful to think about our own projects and topics and how we think about what we're doing today.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Often I was also really impressed by how detailed and in-depth they were able to answer to all questions, because we spend a lot of time thinking about the perfect set of questions, and some of them are quite complex.
Right.
And I remember some public officials who really took like 5 or 10 minutes to reflect on it and take us on almost a tour of the policy process and describe in detail who they considered the key stakeholders and why. And I was sometimes also really impressed by the sophisticated nature in which they were able to do this.
Right, or even the complete opposite. We ask a question and they ask, why are you even asking this? There's nothing here. And just being starkly surprised by thinking, oh, we were thinking so long about these questions and they didn't even think about this, but they answered so fully to another question. So, yeah. Full of surprises.
Yeah, I think I abandoned those memories.
Yeah, we all try to.
And then if you look at yourself, and what would you say is the personal footprint this project has made on you?
Yeah, the personal footprint. I think if I were to summarize it, it is... it's acknowledging, and the team really acknowledging what you know, and being excited about that, but equally celebrating what you don't know and using that as your next footstep to move forward. So, you don't know this. Let's move forward with that. How do we figure this out? And that being your next step and figuring out, okay, now I'm learning to navigate the unknown and being excited about this unknown and that uncertainty.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Here we are. It's nice to hear your own voice.
Yeah, it's weird at the same time.
Exactly. That was ironic.
All right. Shall we just start, I guess?
Right? I think so.
Okay. Can you tell me who you are?
I am Moritz Müller, and I'm currently a postdoc working at Leiden University at the Institute of Public Administration. And maybe that's relevant, originally coming from Germany, but having lived in the Netherlands for almost longer than I would like to disclose.
All right. So now you're a postdoc and in this Northeast project, but I think you were involved before that with the team. Could you explain how did you become involved in this project?
Yes, the story is actually quite random because I was studying policy science in my bachelor and then did global business and sustainability during my master. So I was taking my first detour, and then I was more or less looking for a job. That was the point where I came from after my master, and was very open of what I wanted to do. And I already knew from doing internships before in research, I noticed that doing research and really going into depth with subjects is something I enjoy doing. And then I saw this job announcement. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember where. I think it might have been the university website. For this PhD position in decision making for regulatory officials. I think that was the title. And it sounded really, really fascinating and really nice. And I applied because in the Netherlands, doing a PhD is more comparable to doing a job as a researcher than doing your own isolated project. So I also back then it already looked like a job, which was something I was looking for.
Okay, and then you applied for the job and you got the position.
Exactly.
And you were convinced that you wanted to do a PhD and
Yes, and the application process went like with any other job through an application interview and doing all of these steps. And I didn't know Celeste or Bert or you as well before. But during these interviews and talking about the project, what it's about, I got more and more excited, and I actually got really nervous about not getting it. And then I was really happy to get in, and that's how I got started.
Yeah, I remember being at the other side, so doing the interviews, and I remember that you did the interview with Bert and Celeste on one hand, and then we also had a more conversation of what was the project about. And then we had a conversation, so Bert, Celeste, and me, and we all say, yeah, this guy, this is... So we kind of had a natural agreement. So it was very nice to have this unanimity.
Yes, and it started off on a very social foot, I think, as well, because we, in the beginning, and that is not typical for any job interview, as a final interview, we went to have coffee together.
That's true.
With all of us, and it worked. That's the simple way of saying it. There was very little negative friction in the way of actually getting to great ideas.
Yeah, nice. And now, looking back at this project and the last 5 years, what is the most memorable moment or moments of this project for you?
It's been almost 5 years, so there's a whole collection, and probably also a lot of things I already forgot. But the one point, if you ask me about one single experience that comes to mind, is missing our train home from Brussels while doing interviews with officials at the commission. So I was there with Erin Sullivan doing interviews the whole day. It was a long day, and that's maybe that was also a big part of the project, conducting a lot of interviews with people working at the European Commission. And those days would start very early. We would go to Brussels, take a train from The Hague, and then conduct these interviews, run around Brussels for the whole day, and then in the end, going home and hopefully arriving at home at a somehow feasible time. And that day we finished our round of interviews. Things went pretty well, and we had some dinner before going home. It was very relaxed, and then we got to the train station, and it was already getting tight. But we were running to catch the train. Arrived at the track, but there was no train. So it turns out we were at the wrong train station. So that was the one experience that I really remember, and it might sound negative, but it actually stands for a lot of things also. Of doing such a project, that things don't go according to plan. And often sometimes you expect them not to go according to plan, but sometimes it really happens out of nowhere. And that was one of those points. And we had to improvise to get home because it was late. But that happened many other times for many different, more theoretical questions as well, where we had to sit together and come up with solutions to problems that suddenly came up, which is actually quite nice. Yeah,
and I guess it's when you have these problems, such as missing the train or having something or problems that the things not going according to the plan, it's better if you are with someone else, such as Erin in this case, or with the other members of the team, that you can support each other.
I fully agree, and that also leads to a bigger range of solutions to these problems that alone I and I think no one of the team would have come up with in that capacity.
Great. And now, so it's almost 5 years. And what is the personal footprint of the project for you?
It's been a long journey, and I think that's part of the footprint. It's been a journey with a lot of turns and twists and great rewards left and right. But in a lot of cases, it seemed like things weren't working out the way I or anyone on the project was planning. That is, for example, nature of conducting interviews is that you have to have interviewees that are willing to talk to you. And working on a research project about lobbyism and interest groups comes with the problem that the topic that we are researching, that we're looking into, is touchy for some people. It's something people don't necessarily want to talk about. Or if you ask public officials how transparent their ways of working are, which is really important to know, it sometimes meets quite some resistance. And that is something that we had to figure out on the way, how to get around that, how to ask the right questions, how to design design theoretical research projects that would actually come to these type of underlying questions without upsetting anyone you're talking to or people closing off. And also in my own research, it took a lot of different twists of how I think I started. So as an illustration, the position I applied for was a PhD project about decision-making of policymakers. And now I ended up doing a project which I really enjoyed about reputation and public communication of regulatory organizations, which granted has to do with decision-making as well, but maybe not the way that I would have ever believed in the beginning of the project, which is the joy of doing research. And for me, the personal footprint has been that it's okay to allow yourself to be creative and allow the team, the whole team dynamic to go into different paths and take risks. Sometimes it might not pay off, but in almost all of the cases, eventually there is a payoff to doing things that don't necessarily go according to plan. This whole term thinking outside of the box, there is something to it for sure, of going down these paths that are not necessarily right in front of your eyes.
Yeah, embracing uncertainty.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks a lot, Moritz. And next.
Thank you, Adrià.
Who are you?
Okay. Yes. My name is Adrià Albareda. At this moment, I'm assistant professor at the Erasmus University Rotterdam. And yeah, I'm originally from Barcelona. I came to the Netherlands. When was it? It's 8 years ago now. And I've been doing studies here, so master, PhD, and now working. So in 2 years, I could actually become a Dutch citizen. I only have to say that I renounced to my Spanish citizenship. But that's, so that's who I am, more or less.
And if you compare your experience in Spain as a researcher compared to your research experience in the Netherlands, what would you say is the biggest difference?
I think, I mean, in terms of research, of course, it's always something that I enjoy doing, and it's can be a lonely process. And but it's about this having ideas and trying to see what's out of this and how can you discover this puzzle. But I think the atmosphere, first of all, I think here in the Netherlands, there's much more respect for research, and there's, the institutions, I think they provide much better support than in Spain. And that creates a big difference. And I think that's also one of the reasons I decided to build my academic career here, even though I still have good contacts in Spain. But following the situation there, it's a bit depressing.
Yeah, so talking about your research career in the Netherlands, so how did you become involved in this project?
Yeah, so I came here to the Netherlands for love.
That's the best reason to
yeah, I mean, what else? No, and so when I came in 2013, I started I did a research master at Utrecht University. And during the master, when I started doing my master thesis, I got to meet my supervisor. This was a very special moment in my career that I didn't know at that time that would actually mark my next steps. So I met you, Celeste, and I remember when we met in this building of Amsterdam Free University, rather depressing office with a carpet. But the meeting was great, and I think we had a very motivating, exciting conversation about interest groups, and then I was, first of all, convinced that I wanted to do a master thesis about that. But the more I work on this topic, the more I like the subject, and also I saw that I was really enjoying having you around or supervising this project. So. Yeah, and then I was lucky that you got this grant, and then I was lucky enough to get the position and to continue working with you, and not only with you but also with Bert, Moritz, and Erin. So, yeah, how I got involved, I think it was step by step. I would say. I mean, it was kind of a natural process, but it really worked out perfectly well. I don't know. It was a natural process that just everything fit together.
Yeah, I remember us sitting on one of those terraces in Utrecht, on het ledige erf. And then we discussed your master thesis and your interest in doing a PhD. And then I remember telling you, well, I tried to get a grant. I don't have any opportunities now, but suppose I get a grant, would you then be interested in joining? And then it was very funny to have that situation 1 or 1.5 years later or so. Yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah, definitely. So I was after finishing the master, I was 1 year in between, and I actually should I continue doing a PhD, and I was hesitant. But then you got this, I got the position, and I was, okay, if I do a PhD, it has to be with you, and also in this frame of a larger project with more people.
Yeah. And what I also remember is that in the process of hiring you, so there is these formal steps, so you call the references, or the referees, and one of those was Arjen Boying, and it was a very short conversation on the phone, and he said, you are very stupid if you're not hiring. So he was right.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah, I will have to thank Arjen at some point.
At some point, yeah. So what it was for you, so now we talked about how you got into the project step by step, so what was the most memorable moment for you in the project?
Yeah, I think it's been 5 years, and it's now almost 6 years that even though I'm at another institution, but I think we keep in contact, and there are many memories. So from the start, that what is this project gonna look like? I remember having discussions at the old building of Leiden in The Hague on. What can we do? Thinking about the initial steps and discussing this with you and Bert, and I think there are, so many memories looking back that it's very difficult to pick one. I think one that represents what this collaboration has been, as at least to me, is this afternoon in the beach where we were discussing for almost the whole day the project ideas, what we needed to do, topics about the database, also paper ideas. And it was just, having informal conversations, so during lunch and with beers, that we could talk about at what point about family and more random issues, but then we could really move into substantive topics about research. And that, I think, represents a bit the nature of this team and of this project, that we have managed to have a great balance of being professional in a way and delivering, I think, great outputs and quality research, but at the same time creating bonds among each other. And I think that day, it's in a way represents a bit that idea.
Yeah. And what does that bring you now?
Yeah, now it's, I think it's, now that I'm at another place, I see how valuable it is to have this type of connections and I value more this team-based oriented research. That's, I think, it's how we should do our work, and that's something that I want to pursue and something that I want to continue in my future career. So if I say, looking back and what these last 5 years have represented, is something that I want to keep and develop in the future. So if I want to pursue an academic career and stay in this world for a long time, I want this type of atmosphere and relationship with my team members. Yeah. Which I think it's not easy. I mean, as I said, I think we have been lucky, I guess, because it's not at all easy to get this group of people and to have these dynamics going on. But I think it's something that you can work on, and definitely you can, at least if you pursue and if you go after it, I guess it's possible. And I guess that's also a question for you, how you made it happen in a way.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
I forgot my follow-up question. That's really bad, of course. I remember again. So what would you say is the most crucial thing to develop or build such an atmosphere? So what would you take away in that respect and pursue? Because you say, I want to pursue this.
Yeah. I think that in the end, we are working with people, so you have to get along with the people you work with. And I've seen super talented people in academia, but maybe you don't enjoy that much working with these people. And I think you can, if in your daily life you want to be comfortable and you want to enjoy the work you do, and for that I think you have to be surrounded of people, of course, that are talented, but at the same time that it's important that they are nice that you get along, and that they are nice to be with. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
That's a nice quote.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Let's hope that I remember all the questions. The pressure is on. All right. Let's start with who you are.
Yes, my name is Bert Fraussen. I'm an assistant professor at the Institute of Public Administration, and I've been fascinated by interest representation for 13 years.
That's a very long time.
Yes.
And what have you done before?
Many things, but I'll start at when the research part started.
Yes.
So I did my PhD at the University of Antwerp on a project that also focused on lobbying and interest representation. And that's also where I met Celeste for the first time. She was working there as a postdoc at the time, and she was also a member of my PhD committee. So that was the first time that I got to enjoy collaborating with her. And I remember that I think halfway my PhD, she suddenly left. Well, she didn't left, she got another job, which is great. But from my perspective, she left the university, and I know I really regretted it at the time because I really enjoyed our collaboration. And of course, it didn't stop because we could still have contact via email. I'm taking a side tour here, but I know that's something. I'm trying to answer your question. I'm thinking about too many things at the same time. So I was doing my PhD at the University of Antwerp, and I think that's also where I learned to enjoy working in a team, because at that time we had a really big group of scholars who were working on interest groups and lobbying, and I felt really lucky, and I thought that's really a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
And after completing my PhD, I was very lucky to get in touch with Erin, who happened to have a project also focused on interest groups, but specifically on how do they organize themselves, how do they use social media, and those are the topics that really fascinated me, and I was also really impressed by his work. He was one of the people I really wanted to work with if there would be an opportunity. And now he happened to have this postdoc project for 3 years in Australia, which sounded fantastic to me. So after Antwerp, I went to Australia, and basically then I started looking for another opportunity. And that's when this project came along.
That leads us right to the next question. So how did you get to work on that project? And maybe also what made you want to be part of this project?
Yes. I think, so when I was at ANU, I think after having been for 2 years in Australia, together with my wife, we decided to try and go back to Europe, at least, broadly defined. So I was applying for different positions in the UK, in the Netherlands, but I wasn't not really. I was applying, but I was not really hoping to actually get the job. I didn't see a vacancy that really made me feel very eager to leave Australia. Because on the one hand, I would like to continue my career in academia, but also not at every place. And basically, I've always enjoyed working in a team, working with people who I in a way admire, who I see as people from whom I can learn a lot, with whom I also enjoy to collaborate. So I was actually looking for that. But there are not that many people around who meet all those criteria. So it's a small set of groups. And then I had always been in touch with Celeste. So at some point I also learned that she had this new project and that there was a postdoc opportunity. And I think the first time I heard about this, she was still at the University of Utrecht. And then I think during the process she moved to Leiden. And of course I think our institute is a great place for me to be. But basically I've always chosen to work with people above place or projects. So my experience is that's at least for me, that's what gives me the biggest joy, the biggest learning opportunities, how to say this? I think that's the basis of everything. So when I learned she had a fascinating project that we would be able to work with a team, that there would be PhD students, and then Adrià came into the picture, then later you, then Erin. I thought this is really the perfect setting for me and a good reason to leave Australia.
Yeah, must have been a good reason to trade Australian sun for Dutch rain.
Yes, at least The Hague is also at the beach, but that's the only similarity. And it's the capital, so...
many good reasons.
Yeah.
So when you think back to the project, what is the most memorable experience you've had?
I find that a really difficult question. Although I had time to think about it. I think maybe one thing that sticks to my mind, that we managed to survive Corona as a team. Because I remember at that time, I was really concerned whether Celeste and I were doing enough to provide support, to provide feedback, to keep you, Erin, and Adrià involved. Because I know it's, even if you work in a team, a PhD, doing a PhD can be quite lonely. There is a high level of uncertainty. It's a huge investment. And then Corona happened, which made it even more challenging, more isolated. And Celeste and I talked a lot about this, and we came up with many different ways to keep in touch and make sure that we kept this team dynamic. But I never was really sure that we managed to do it in a good way. So it was really nice to notice then when the pandemic ended and when we got to see each other more often, that we still had this nice team dynamic, and that the connections we built and the good relationships that wasn't lost. Maybe that had only become stronger, but that's something I know now, and I still think there were some things that we could or should have done better. But that's something that for me, that's something that it's more something that I'm really happy about. It's maybe not the most memorable moment, but I think that was the most challenging moment and also sort of a critical test that we managed to pass.
Yeah. Maybe related to that, what did you find the most challenging aspect in terms of teamwork during the COVID time?
I think it's much harder to know how everyone's feeling. I think it's relatively easy to follow up on research and write papers together and give feedback, because that basically works the same as when you would do it in a live setting. But in normal circumstances, I would be able to come by your office, expected or unexpected, and I would just run in and just ask what's keeping you busy or how things are going, or we could go for a random coffee. And then we would have opportunities to talk about anything, basically. And now all those opportunities were gone. And it was much harder to assess, like, what's keeping you busy, what's your state of mind. Should we be more in touch? Should I leave you alone for 2 weeks? And is everything going well? And that's almost impossible to assess via a screen, via Teams.
Yes. From own experience, and I think for Adrià and Erin, the same thing. It was very nice to know that someone cares about you. Yeah. In your professional work environment. And that definitely brought us through the pandemic, I think, comparatively well.
Yeah, I also think that was the most important thing that we had to do at that point. Yeah. Of course, it was challenging and stressful in many different ways, but just because I know how much I think people underestimate how hard it is to complete a PhD. And I still remember very fondly the uncertainty, the level of stress, especially if you come closer to the end, because then you almost made it, but not yet entirely. So the finish is close, but you're not yet there. And then I also had a very good relationship with my supervisor, but at the end, at some points, I would also... well, let's say that how can I say this in a nice way? Well, it's a very intense relationship. You work with someone very closely for 4 or 5 years. You discuss research and you work very openly. You criticize each other. So I think it's normal that at some point that also becomes a relationship that is under a lot of pressure. And even if you know each other quite well, you still don't know all the things that are on your mind or all the things that's keeping me busy. So sometimes you don't really understand each other's actions or demands, even if you both have the same goal to make this a very successful and high quality PhD.
Yeah, interesting. Related to the milestones, going back to the milestones, did you ever have a moment where you, like a ka-ching moment, where you, where things got ecstatic, where things were really nice?
I think there were many of those moments. I think one moment I remember, which was the setting itself was definitely not ecstatic. So Celeste, Adrià, and I had been working on a paper on consultation tools and how they shape stakeholder involvement. And it took us a while, but we got to the point that we had an revise and we submitted a journal. So it looked like this was we were going to get this published. And I remember that I had discussed this with Celeste and then set up a meeting with Adrià. And I thought, let's just sit together in a room and for 3 hours and we'll just finish this revision in one go. And I booked a room at university. It was one of these ugly rooms with no window, so not inspirational at all. But I know I really enjoyed just going over the comments and then discussing them, making a plan. And I think we basically completed the revision in 3 hours. And I think that was really nice because you could feel that we spent so much time thinking about the design of this study. The reason we ask these questions, the kind of data we collected, that when we would just sit together and discuss it, we would find solutions very, very easily. And that was something that you really, I think those moments are really nice when that happens.
Yeah. What is the lasting footprint that this project has left on you? And I specifically ask what this project has taught you, because you already came into the project as a very experienced researcher.
Well, I think the difference was that this time I was also supervising PhD students, which was the first time for me. And I think what I should learn from this project, I'm not sure if I will learn this, but I should try, is to be a bit more confident in some ideals or values which I strongly believe in. I strongly believe that a PhD is something very personal and individual, which also means that I think that you should have the space and support as a PhD researcher to really find the topic and the questions that trigger you, that you find most fascinating, and that we as PhD supervisors should do everything possible to facilitate and stimulate that process. But that's also really challenging at the same time, because that means that we leave it very open. It's also challenging for you as a PhD student, because basically everything is possible, but you might move into an area which I have no experience at all. And I think this project gave me the confidence that even if that happens, I'm able to go along and support you in that process. And that is also the best way to really develop yourselves professionally and personally. So I think it's, making sure that I hold on to those ideals and values in future collaborations. That's maybe the one thing that I hope to take away from this project and this unique collaboration. And that's maybe also because I've been lucky to work with people like Celeste, who, when I was doing my PhD, took that same approach, which I find really inspiring, which also encouraged me to continue in academia.
Yeah.
So I think passing that on is a is a real privilege and also a joy.
Would you say that approach bears certain risks for you as a supervisor?
Yes and no would be the... Yes, I think depends. Well, I think maybe that's the wrong question. Because I think it should not be about me as a supervisor, but about you as a PhD student. So even if you have a great idea and I have no clue, or I see many potential risks or challenges along the way, I think if you find this so fascinating that you take the step to start working on this, I basically should follow you. So does it entail risks? Yes, most definitely. Like it means that you, I have no idea where you will be going with this idea. Maybe you might abandon it after 2 months. Maybe it will be the basis of your whole academic career. Like it can be any of those extremes, and that's fine. But I think you have to be able to enjoy that process. And I think that's essential to doing research in a way.
That's a perfect ending spot, I think.
Okay, thanks
a lot. Woo!
Back in the spaceship.
Yes, exactly.
It's funny, our first question is how did you become involved? But yes. I think the broader question of who are you is a good one to start. So, who are you?
I'm Celeste Brown. I'm a professor at the Institute of Public Administration at Leiden University. And I really feel very fortunate to be in this role at that place, because it's my alma mater, so it's the university where I did my studies, and I had a great time during my studies. So it's just a dream that came true.
Mm-hmm. And how did this project come about? You're leading this project, so it's clearly the baseline and the meeting point of all of us to be part of this team.
Yeah, that's a very difficult answer in a way, or difficult story. And I think it goes back to when I was studying. It was my first year. And then my mentor in one of those first year working groups, we had a mentor, and he invited me to be student assistant with his team. And then I experienced the team spirit, as in we were in a very ugly building, on top of a very ugly building, an even uglier space. And the team had every morning coffee together and lunch together. And what happened then is that they had conversations, switching back and forth between commenting on the news, commenting on political developments, and just as easily switch to difficult research questions and how to answer them. And I, as a young woman, I think I was 19 or 20 or so, I was just sitting in and listening, and I truly enjoyed that atmosphere. And then I thought, I also want to do a PhD. Mm. And then years later, and then it was, I think, 2014, I thought, okay, what would be the next step in my career? I want to have that team environment. And what do I need to do for that? Oh, I have to apply. And I have to apply soon, because otherwise I run out of time, because you have these deadlines with these major funding organizations. Thing was, I was just with pregnancy leave. So I had a little baby. And then I thought, okay, it's now or never. So I wrote the application during my pregnancy leave. And the moment so it's actually a miracle that the project came through, because the moment I wanted to submit, we had a gardener in the room, and he cut the internet cable. So I was totally panicking. Oh my God, this is not going to happen to me. So I called my husband, and he was really my savior. He said, come on, take the kids, go to the nearest cafe, use the Wi-Fi, and submit the bloody proposal. So that's what I did. I took the kit, I took the proposal on a USB stick, and then I was in the cafe. I submitted it, and I thought, okay, when this comes through, I really have to remember this. It will be a miracle. So in a way, that's how I got involved. So you have these different steps, and then I got the money, and I got the grant. And I was totally excited to be able to create that team spirit and team environment for my own research projects. Yeah.
Wow. I actually never knew this story, so it's quite incredible to hear it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the start of the project. And what was the start of the idea of the project and really the substance of the project?
Oh, that's a very good question. That's also a long trail throughout my research career, I think. So I did my PhD on, I think it was one of the, not the first, but one of the rare publications that tried to combine how public officials reach out to interest groups and stakeholders, and then vice versa, how interest groups, stakeholders actually respond. So it's a two-way traffic, basically. And I think that was the PhD about, and I really wanted to have that throughout my career. But I got a postdoc role and other assistant professorship roles that emphasized either one part or the other in subsequent order. And then I thought, I really want to bring those strands of research together again. And that should be the idea of the proposal. And I thought, okay, regulatory capture is really that. It's about decision-making, public officials deciding on allowing groups or stakeholders to have influence or not, doing that consciously or unconsciously, being in an organizational context. That's one part. And the other part is, how do interest groups respond to that, strategically or not? Can they respond? Are there blind spots? And bringing these two together will give us a true answer. Well, true. There's never a truth in science, I think. But a better answer to the question, what is regulatory capture?
Right. And yeah, so you have this, process of bringing back this research agenda. And I can imagine that it can be both exciting, but also scary to start to, create a team and start to share this vision and this dream with people. You don't want it to transform in ways that you don't want it to, but you're also excited to see how other people take your vision on this project and how it will transform. So what was your process and your experience with inviting Bert and Adrià and Moritz and myself onto the team? And what was that whole process for you like?
Oh, yeah. I think when I wrote the proposal, I put on paper an idea that I strongly believed in, but I was bluffing whether it would work out. And that was that you have to have this frame of a research project, but there should always be room for the individual researchers to take the research into the direction they believe is right. So it's the individual academic freedom that should flourish within a team context as well. And at that time, when writing the proposal, that wasn't easy because most of the projects were really sort of segments implementing the main idea. And I really didn't want to lead a project that was like that. So I put it on paper. I had to defend it during my interview. And I did that as the best as I could because I really strongly believe in this. And then that leads to the process of, finding people that fit that idea or that believe in that idea. And when I met Adrià as a master student, research master student, I thought, that's nice. He's interested in the project. I think he's a very good scholar. So when I get the money, that's then one of the people I want to have on board. And the same happened with Bert. I knew Bert from Antwerp, where I was co-supervising his PhD, and we kept in touch. Same thing. That's the one I want to have as a postdoc, because what Bert has is this. He is very positive, but also very critical, and that's a very good combination because it keeps me sharp, it keeps us sharp, I think. And then the rest of the interview. So what I remember and what I liked a lot about Moritz is that the creativity he brought to the table. So being a trumpetist, I really liked his profile and his enthusiasm for the project, and it played, that was a very good decision. I didn't know him, and that was different with Bert and Adrià. But from the moment we had the conversation during the job interview, it was clear that he had this spark of creativity. And then with you, so you were one of our students, and Bert supervised your PhD, your master thesis. And then I got to see it, and I was just flabbergasted with your enthusiasm and your openness. And I thought, well, these are the qualities of a young scholar. So let me try to bring her on board as well.
Ah, really nice. Also nice to see all the different reasons for the people. I guess that takes us to the next question. So what was the most memorable part of the project for you?
Yeah. I don't think I have one memorable moment, but a string of memorable moments. And maybe it's not memorable moments, but memorable feelings. So what I really liked about the team and the project is that we often went for a coffee or having lunch together or sitting down in the common room when it was still a common room. And then we had this back and forth conversations between personal stuff and research. But what I really remember very well and what inspired me back then and still inspires me is the creative spark. So we got to discuss hard things. Okay, how do we solve this issue? How are we going to collect this data? Okay, we have time constraints, so how do we solve that? Oh, we have to work from home. That complicates matters a lot. How do we solve this? And each and every time when the team came together, whether it was on campus or on the beach or via MS Teams, at some point there was this, this vibe, the creative spark when we found a solution. And that's what I remember most from the project.
Right, yeah. I mean, I can recall on these as well. But, okay, and out of all those, what do you think was the most challenging?
I think the most challenging part for me was managing the bureaucracy around the team and making sure that you as researchers didn't feel the pain from the bureaucracy, right? I wanted to give you the freedom to explore ideas, to go in the direction you wanted to, and keep away all the bureaucratic issues, management, financial stuff, all the things that need to be arranged in order for the project to run smoothly. But that is something I wanted to stick to, but it took me quite some energy and time to actually accomplish it. So that was for me the most challenging part.
And what effects did it have on you as maybe as a team leader, but also as a researcher yourself?
I didn't have as much time available for the research as I thought I would upfront. So the admin and the management and steering the project through university bureaucracy took me way more time and energy than I ever could anticipate when getting the grant.
And if you have a project again, is this something where you go, okay, I know how to navigate this, or is it still this unknown terrain?
No, it's not unknown, and I would handle it differently, I think.
How so?
Maybe even delegate it to. Well, that's a very practical answer. So delegated to a research to research support staff, which you could hire for such a project. So that's a practical solution. The mental solution is to just ignore it more than I dared to do in the beginning, because it's a bit of a baby, the project. So you really want to safeguard the baby. But now I think I would be more willing to just ignore the bureaucracy. And when that goes wrong, that goes wrong. It can be solved. That's what I learned.
That can also bring some peace.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what do you think is the personal footprint of the project?
that's many. There's, I think, two major things, and the one is for me. The project was really a test into my leadership capacity, in the sense what I learned from my own PhD supervisor, and I got inspiration from the TV series, or the TV series, the show, Band of Brothers, about the battle in the Second World War. And one of the majors is really, if you lead the way. Also, when it becomes very, very hard, you go first. And that's what I learned from my PhD supervisor. And for me, this project was a test whether I could do that. Would I be able to take the lead when things were very tough? And there was a challenge for me to stick to my own principles. We had a couple of very difficult situations. And for me, it was a test how would I survive those? And could I look in the mirror with that ideal of type of leadership in mind? And I think, well, maybe not fully, but I think I managed somehow to stick to those principles I had up front. And what I learned from that is I can do this. I can stick to those principles even though the environment is not supportive of that kind of leadership. I need to push it, and I can push it. So that's one thing. And the other thing is the sheer joy of doing research together with colleagues, and the insight you get from that. That is something I really want to do again. So yeah, I now know what to do.
You stole the last question out of my mouth. Would you do it all again? But I guess you would.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because the team spirit is I would do this project definitely over again. And would I take the time and effort to try to create a new team? Yes, because I really cherish the team spirit, so the collaborative research, and it really pays off. So yeah.
We will listen to these conversations afterwards, but I was wondering, what did you learn from listening to your team members? Did you gain any new insights? Or what will stick in your memory?
That it's very fresh to now reflect on what I've learned this afternoon. But what stays with me is the openness with which every one of us shared their memories and experiences. That's what I really liked a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's also quite unique to give an insight into a project.
Yeah.
Not only tell about the research and the results and the publications, but also what we learned individually and as a team.
Yeah. I think so too. Yes. Go for a beer. Yes. That's what I learned too in the project.
That's also an important
this afternoon.
Part of the project.
That sharing some drinks, what kind of drinks it is, helps to to share ideas and to be creative.